We have a surprising J.J. McCarthy update that came out of nowhere but has Viking fans excited nonetheless. And Wednesday's injury report was full of ups and downs, but K.O.C. couldn't be happier to have one of his defenders back at 110% health as the Vikings look to have a bounce back from a weak win to a dominant win versus the Titans on Sunday. We're going to be breaking down all of that in this episode of Vikings Digest, but first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all Vikings updates as we head into Titans week. And with that, let's hop on the first topic of the day, which is J.J. McCarthy update. So K.O.C. spoke to the media today after J.J. McCarthy underwent another procedure on his torn meniscus. He says, "We know he had what I would consider an extensive injury in training camp. He's really knocked it out of the park every step of the way. And as his rehab has picked up, we noticed a little bit of swelling in there, and just with the time that we do have, he's been doing everything we've asked of him and improving, getting stronger, all those things, but just wanted to make sure that there was no cause for concern, and all reports were very positive. He's on the original timeline and in good shape." And as far as that original timeline is concerned, that original timeline is going to be next training camp. McCarthy did encounter the first glimmer of this injury when he had swelling in his knee on August 11th. If you guys weren't watching the preseason or following the Vikings early in the season, but a lot of you guys probably were, the number 10 overall pick completed 2024, completed 11 of 17 passes for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns with 1 interceptions and a passer rating of 116.8. Also rushed 2 times for 18 yards. McCarthy did not practice on August 12th, and he underwent surgery to repair his meniscus that week. He has progressed through his rehab, remaining upbeat the whole way. McCarthy made it to the point where he was cleared to attend games, and he's been highly involved in team meetings. So this is awesome to see, where McCarthy is not only on the sidelines being there for moral support for his teams, but he's also in the offensive room being a sponge with Kevin O'Connell, with Sam Darnold, learning behind Sam Darnold for a year. We didn't know if that was going to be fully the case if he was fully healthy. It probably would have been a little bit of a quarterback competition, but they wouldn't have wanted to feed JJ to the Wolves right away. We saw that go wrong with Bryce Young and some other rookie quarterbacks as far as this season is concerned, primarily Caleb Williams. And in a situation where it wasn't the ideal way for him to sit out a full year and learn behind Sam Darnold, it will be beneficial for him, because we've seen in the past where when players just have a year waiting behind a guy that is a solid starting quarterback or just is an all-time great quarterback, in the case of Aaron Rodgers where he was behind Brett Favre, when they wait and have a solid or great quarterback to learn behind, they come out better. Michael Penix is doing that with Kirk Cousins. Patrick Mahomes did it with Alex Smith, and Jordan Love did it with Aaron Rodgers, like Aaron Rodgers did it with Brett Favre. So this is a pattern, and it is a cycle that we've seen in the NFL, not only in the past few years, but also in the past few decades as well. There has been some other rare cases. Tom Brady as well. He was someone who learned behind Drew Bledsoe. So there's history of guys who have just benefited from sitting out a full year and learning behind their starting quarterback. This has been an unfortunate case for J.J. McCarthy because he's doing it while having a torn meniscus, but it is something where he is still learning. He is taking that year. It's almost forcing him to have to take that year, but it is unfortunate nonetheless. But seeing that he is back on track to be back for training camp is just awesome to see. And when Kevin O'Connell spoke on McCarthy's rehab and his involvement with the offense, I've just enjoyed as his rehab has progressed. He can be in team meetings, spend a little bit of time with us, and it's been some real growth for him. He continues to ask great questions every day, and we'll just continue to. That's the hardest part. When you get to the ability to do a little bit more and start pushing through those final stages over the next few weeks, I feel really good about where he's at. So he's in the next step of his recovery process. And this is something that Kevin O'Connell is monitoring very closely. He's not going to want to rush him back, especially when you get to that eager point in your recovery process where you just want to get back out there. You feel like, oh, I can walk around, I can even jog. Now I'm ready to go back out there. That's not the case. We saw it with Justin Jefferson last year, where even in pregame warmups where he was able to jog and kind of go about 75%, it wasn't that full 100. It wasn't the normal JJ that we're used to seeing, so we didn't bother risking it to push a further injury. That's going to be the case with JJ, so they're just going to take their time with it and make sure that he's ready for next training camp. They're probably not going to start him as much in the preseason. It all depends on if he is going to be the current backup for Sam Darnold if they re-sign him and bring him back next year, or if he's going to be thrown into that starting position right away next season if Darnold does go to another team. But what do you guys think down in the comments about JJ's progress? When do you guys think we're going to see him? Do you guys think we're going to see him play any preseason games next season, or do you think it's just going to be 1 or 2? Love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments, but that's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is the Wednesday injury report. So we see on the Vikings side of things a few full practices, but lots of limited practices. Again, this is early weeks, so taking it lightly to start the the week is something that a lot of teams and players also do because they don't want to risk anything and have the heavier workload in the later part of the week. But looking at the limited participants in today's practice, you have Sam Darnold with the right hand, Aaron Jones with his ribs. That was alarming last game where he got carted off. Then you have Gabe Murphy, who's just still trying to get back off that IR. And then Josh Oliver with a wrist and hand one as a limited participant. Cam Robinson, new acquisition, limited practice with a foot injury. Andrew Van Ginkel with a hip injury. So that's not something that is overly alarming because they were still limited, but it is alarming in the sense of who the players are on this list. Sam Darnold, very notable. That's our starting quarterback. Aaron Jones, our starting running back. Josh Oliver, he has emerged as one of our solid backup tight ends this season. He's been almost worthy of a waiver wire pickup as a streaming option in fantasy as a result of it. Cam Robinson, he's taken a few flags since he came over to Minnesota, but he's still adjusting, and he's been a great replacement for Christian Darrisaw. And then you have Andrew Van Ginkel as well. He got 2 sacks last game where he just dummied Mac Jones. So he is someone who, again, is a big part of this defense, but two people who are a massive part of this defense is Ivan Pace Jr. and Blake Cashman. Blake Cashman, of which where Kevin O'Connell did speak on having him back in the offense. We're not going to read through all of it, but if you want to pause it, you can take a look. He does talk about what it is like having a guy like Blake Cashman back in there, getting them back into the fold, what it opens up for the defense and how that just helps the defense come together more as a whole. Even goes into saying that at one point Cashman last game felt like he wasn't even breaking his sweat. Well, that's a really good thing because you're playing really well is what Kevin O'Connell's response was. So Cashman is an integral part of this defense. It was great to have him back last game. And yes, our defense was one of the 2 reasons why we stayed in that game. The other one being, of course, Parker Romo in his Minnesota Vikings debut. But having Blake Cashman back in that defense just being as shut down as they were against a Jags offense that definitely should not have put up any points against us. They managed to get only 7, but after that we shut them completely down. It was just on our offense to kind of pick up the slack there. That game could have been a blowout and it ended up being an unnecessarily close game. We're hoping that is the opposite against this week versus the Titans. And when looking at the Titans side of things to start off the week, lots of DNPs, where the most notables of which being Tony Pollard, L'Jarius Sneed, and Jeffrey Simmons. Not one of the biggest ones, but Jeffrey Simmons and Tony Pollard being rest days. So not overly concerning, but again, at first glance, seeing them on there, it is a little bit of just alarming just to see the DNP. But again, that's just rest. They're veterans. They're going to get that. But L'Jarius Sneed is a big one because Sam Darnold got picked off 3 times targeting Justin Jefferson last game. So this is one of those things where they don't have L'Jarius Sneed. Now Sam Darnold can kind of open it up, throw it out to Justin Jefferson, pick on the guy who is filling in for L'Jarius Sneed, and make sure that he has a horrible Sunday. That's going to be something where hopefully Minnesota can just expose that part of Tennessee if Sneed doesn't play. Tony Pollard is probably definitely going to play, and as well as Jeffrey Simmons. So that's going to pose a lot of problems for our run defense and for our offensive line because Jeffrey Simmons is a dog for all intents and purposes. And Tony Pollard has really been super solid, and we've been kind of struggling against the run. We shut him down last game. We didn't let the Jags get too much on the run. We did shut Jonathan Taylor down, but Kyren Williams diced us up. And in a situation where that could be something for us, where Tony Pollard is super fast, that could torch us. We know Tajay Spears is getting involved a little bit too. So Tennessee isn't a running back tandem like Montgomery and Gibbs being over in Detroit. But having Pollard and Spears being so fast, it could dice us up, especially with the amount that we're blitzing if we don't blitz the right gap. But what do you guys think heading into this early week game preview? What do you guys think about the Titans week? Do we just feast on them like we should have feasted on Jacksonville and make up for that game? Or is this going to be another close game that is going to be surprising to a lot of people and maybe show that the Vikings could be frauds or if they are for real? Would love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments. But that's all we got for this episode of Vikings Digest. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you don't miss the updates when they drop. We're going to see you in the next video as the week rolls out with more injury reports and game previews. But for all that, stay tuned to Vikings Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.